This adventurous story begins by depicting the time when humans discovered that many unknown creatures lived on a planet close to Earth. The main goal of these creatures was to find a way to come to Earth and increase their population. Although humans were advancing significantly in technology, a large committee of soldiers was formed to go to this planet and eliminate these creatures. In this manner, we see Group B, a team that landed on the unknown planet and was fighting many creatures. They had received news that the creatures were developing themselves and that several species existed there. The entire team was led by Captain Jack, who appointed a man named Deal to make all decisions. Deal had some psychic abilities and would receive glimpses of what the future held, guiding the team accordingly. Although there were many soldiers present, the number of creatures was increasing so rapidly that they had to retreat. These soldiers had fought the creatures before, but after this long period, the creatures had become much more advanced and larger. The hybrid creatures were continuously attacking the soldiers. General Brack suggested that they should move the remaining soldiers to a nearby outpost where everyone would be safe. Captain Jack said that he would stay behind with a few soldiers to fight the creatures while the rest of the team should head to the outpost. Deal agreed with this plan, so Rake began to lead more than half of the soldiers towards the outpost. Captain Jack and a few soldiers continued to fight the creatures, but Rake was unsure whether they would all survive alone. When Rake brought the remaining soldiers to the outpost, there were already several soldiers there. The soldiers did not give up easily and fought off the creatures before closing all the windows and doors of the outpost. Deal was telling General Rake that they needed to turn on the power system, otherwise, electricity would never come to this place. They would need to repair the power reactor, which was the job of a technician. Following Deal's suggestion, Rake immediately assigned one of his men, a technician, to fix the reactor. General Rake then took Deal to a cabin where the captain of this place used to stay. However, the bad news was that they had recently received word that their captain had been killed. When they arrived at the cabin, they found a man named Dex imprisoned there. General Rake asked the criminal Dex who had killed their captain. Dex responded by saying that the captain had made some wrong decisions that led to the deaths of many soldiers, and he couldn't tolerate this. Therefore, in a fit of anger, he had killed their captain. Both Deal and Rake were very angry upon hearing this. Deal said that no matter what you did, you would never get out of here. This made Dex extremely furious. After a while, the reactor was fixed, and electricity was restored. With electricity coming to the outpost, everything became visible. All the electrical systems and radar systems were activated. However, soldiers soon noticed on the radar that many aliens and creatures were surrounding their base. They had to find a way to protect themselves because if so many creatures managed to enter the base, fighting them would be nearly impossible. As a result, General Rake ordered all the soldiers to be stationed outside to fend off the creatures with their guns. But it seemed that it would be nearly impossible to kill so many creatures with guns. The soldiers were facing a lot of difficulties, but then a soldier named Sahara figured out what needed to be done. She immediately went to the captain's cabin and freed the criminal Dex. Because she wanted Dex to help with everything, Dex, a middle-aged man, immediately went outside to assist them. Dex knew that if the creatures got in, the outpost would be completely destroyed. As soon as Dex assessed the conditions, he began to strategize and explain how they needed to plan. If they didn't work together, the creatures would kill them all. Dex quickly gathered a lot of dynamite from the outpost and took it to the first floor, where he planned to throw it at the creatures if they came close. After making these plans, when Dex came back downstairs, Deal began arguing with him, questioning why they should listen to a criminal. Dex then started attacking Deal, saying that if Deal had any ideas, he should share them. Otherwise, if many people died because of Deal's indecision, Dex would kill him. Hearing this, Deal became very frightened because he had no plan of his own. So, he sat quietly and let Dex do his work. Following these events, everyone started to respect Dex's strategy. Soon, many creatures began to surround their outpost. At Dex's signal, they started dropping dynamite from the first floor. Everyone moved inside the outpost, resulting in a massive explosion outside. The explosion incinerated the creatures, and no one had ever thought of such a strategy except for the criminal Dex. Within a short time, many creatures were killed, thanks to Dex's small but effective plan. Now, Dex devised another plan because they were running out of dynamite. He started to pass electricity around the barriers surrounding the outpost, creating a parameter where the creatures would receive a strong electric shock if they crossed it. This way, they could eliminate the creatures effectively. For now, Dex and Sahara had stopped passing electricity through the parameter because they would need to turn it on only when the creatures arrived. Everyone waited for the creatures. Shortly, the soldiers saw Captain Jack and several soldiers running towards them, with many creatures chasing them and trying to kill them. Dex then told all the soldiers to keep the electricity off in the perimeter for now because they needed to save Jack and the other soldiers. Captain Jack, along with his soldiers, managed to get inside the outpost. Immediately after that, Dex signaled, and the soldiers turned on the electricity in the perimeter. As the creatures crossed the perimeter, they received a strong electric shock. This shock completely destroyed the creatures, causing them to be eliminated one by one. Dex's plan was working very effectively, and the outpost was now fully secure. The outpost had gained extra protection thanks to Dex. The remaining soldiers gathered together. Captain Jack explained to them how his life had been in extreme danger, surrounded by creatures on all sides. However, Geo, Lena, and several other soldiers had saved him and brought him to the outpost. Unfortunately, Lena was badly injured and had lost consciousness. Captain Jack then instructed Geo and a few soldiers to take care of Lena. Geo, for some reason, refused the other soldiers' help and said he would handle it alone. He took very good care of Lena. Captain Jack then went directly to Deal and asked him why so many soldiers had died, even though Deal had psychic powers and could see visions of the future. Why hadn't Deal informed them in advance about the massive attack by the creatures? If they had known earlier, many soldiers' lives could have been saved. Deal had no answers to these questions. As a result, Captain Jack, very angry, left the scene. Deal, then, went directly to Sahara and began to scold her for freeing a criminal. Deal was referring to Dex, whom Sahara had freed. Suddenly, Dex approached and told Deal why he was taking his anger out on a lady. If he wanted to talk, he should talk to Dex himself. Deal was so frightened in front of Dex that he couldn't speak. Dex simply replied that he deserved to be free because he had, in a way, saved everyone's lives, and they should be grateful to him. It seemed that Sahara had started to like Dex, as she followed him. Deal felt very isolated within the team because he sensed something was wrong, and no one was listening to him. Meanwhile, Lena was now completely recovered. Captain Jack and the other soldiers went to see her and asked if she would be able to return to work. Lena responded, saying she was now fine and ready to rejoin her team. Everyone was a bit relieved and left, except for Geo, who stayed with Lena. They exchanged peculiar smiles, suggesting they shared a secret that the others didn't know. During this time, while closing a gate, a soldier accidentally cut some electricity wires, causing a major short circuit and a complete power outage in the outpost. With the power out, the electric parameter Dex had created was now useless, meaning the creatures could attack the outpost without hesitation. Therefore, Dex went outside with the soldiers to protect the outpost. Everyone was well positioned to defend the outpost. Since the creatures could attack at any moment, it was fortunate that they were not very active at night. The technician soldiers managed to restore the electricity, making the outpost secure again. The soldiers, relieved, returned to their duties. Dex was shown relaxing and shaving when Lena approached him. She began touching Dex's body in a peculiar manner and tried to seduce him. However, Dex, being the stern character he was, did not react to Lena's attempts. Instead, Dex pushed Lena away and punished her by ordering her to do 100 push-ups. After giving this punishment, Dex left. Lena, very angry, complied with the punishment, but the reason behind her actions would become clear later. Once Lena finished her punishment, she went to a soldier named Duff, who was very young. Lena, who wasn't very compliant, tried to engage in physical activities with Duff. Duff, being young, was easily influenced and began kissing Lena passionately. However, it was noticed that Lena was extracting a black substance from her mouth, which she then injected into Duff's body. Duff became unconscious for a while and couldn't understand what had happened to him. On the other side, Geo was seen flirting with a lady named Jill. Geo got quite close to Jill and began kissing her as well. He also extracted a black substance from his mouth and injected it into Jill's body. What exactly was happening with these substances would be revealed in time. A few days later, Rak and Sahara discussed how Duff and Jill had been behaving strangely recently. They were always seen around Geo and Lena. It seemed as if they were enslaving the soldiers, but Rak and Sahara did not pay much attention to it. Now, we see Peg, the military officer who had handled all the wiring and brought electricity to the outpost. He was still working on the wiring when another soldier arrived. Peg asked him for help, but when the soldier approached, Peg immediately started attacking him. The soldier had no idea why Peg was behaving this way. Another soldier arrived with Peg and began injecting the black substance into the new soldier's mouth, rendering him unconscious for a long time. The black substance they were using was actually a hybrid version of the creatures, now more advanced than before. The creatures had evolved through mutations, reducing their size to infiltrate human bodies and control them. They transferred their smaller body parts into other humans to increase their population, which posed a significant threat to everyone. This danger was unknown to the soldiers. Captain Jack learned that their radio signals were working again, so he immediately contacted their base on Earth for a rescue mission. After establishing the connection, Captain Jack requested that a spaceship be sent to rescue them because they were in a dire situation. The response was that they were working on the mission and would send a spaceship as soon as possible. All the soldiers were extremely happy with this news as it meant they could finally go home. Now, we see all the soldiers eating their meal. Sahara was serving food to everyone with great affection when Geo approached her, looking at her strangely. Suddenly, Sahara noticed Geo's thumb, which had turned completely black. When that thumb touched Sahara's body, she started experiencing strange visions, as if she were seeing an alien, and her vision became completely blurry. The issue was that, like Deal, Sahara also experienced unusual future visions. Seeing these visions, Sahara began to suspect that something was wrong with Geo, as his behavior had been increasingly odd. Sahara reported this to General Rick, but Rick paid little attention to her concerns. He told Sahara that her lack of proper sleep might be causing these issues, so Sahara didn't think much more about it. Next, we see two soldiers resting when Geo opens the door and brings in Peg, who was in a terrible state, having been severely beaten by Geo. Geo had even gouged out Peg's eyes and ripped open his body, revealing strange creatures emerging from Peg. These creatures were highly advanced and developed inside human bodies, eventually maturing and breaking out. Now, these creatures began to approach the two soldiers to attack them. The soldiers immediately started fighting back, but the smaller creatures that emerged from the larger one seemed to be reproducing, further increasing their population. In no time, the small creatures devoured the two soldiers, leading to their gruesome deaths. Meanwhile, Zara went directly to Deal, saying that she was seeing strange visions of small creatures attacking people. Deal was shocked because he too was experiencing similar visions. Deal began to understand that these events might be caused by the creatures. So, he instructed all soldiers to keep an eye on those soldiers who had returned alive from the battle with Jack. However, as Deal moved a bit further, he was suddenly surrounded by several soldiers. These were the same soldiers who had been attacked by the creatures and were now under their control. Deal quickly pulled out a gun for protection and aimed it at them, but from behind, another soldier named Willie, who was also under the control of the creatures, came up and immediately killed Deal with a knife. Thus, Deal was eliminated. Soon after, when everyone learned about Deal's murder, the soldiers captured Dex and brought him to Captain Jack, suspecting that Dex was responsible for the killing. Despite Dex's innocence, he had no way to prove it. In fact, there was evidence against him because the knife found with Dex had Deal's blood on it. As a result, with evidence against him, Dex was thrown back into prison. The others did not listen to Dex's pleas and declared him a criminal on the spot. Willie then arrived at the scene, pretending to be normal, and approached Sahara, saying he wanted to talk to her. Sahara, who found Willie very charming, went with him. Once they were alone in a room, Willie told Sahara that he liked her very much and wanted to make her like him. When Sahara heard this, she started feeling uneasy and noticed a strange odor coming from Willie's body. Realizing something dangerous was happening, she quickly locked herself in a room to protect herself. Willie tried hard to get into the room but failed. The good news was that General Rack arrived shortly after and witnessed how Willie was trying to harm Sahara. By this time, all the infected individuals, including Geo and Lena, had arrived at the scene. They captured General Rack and forced the same small creature into her mouth, meaning General Rack would now be under their control. Sahara, trapped in the small room, watched all these events unfold but was unable to do anything. Meanwhile, Lena entered the chamber where Dex was held captive and introduced a small creature into his chamber, allowing it to enter his body. General Rack, being very brave, managed to prevent the creature inside her body from taking control by giving herself a bit of a boost. She then quickly killed Geo and the other soldiers controlled by the aliens. Willie, trying to open the chamber, attempted to kill Sahara, but Sahara continued to fight back. Armed with an iron rod, she managed to kill Willie. Sahara quickly went to General Rack and rescued Dex from his chamber, realizing how critical the situation was and understanding the reality of how these aliens were taking over human bodies. General Rack, feeling very distressed, informed Dex that the aliens had begun taking over human bodies, including hers. She did not want to become a danger, so in the next moment, she shot herself. However, Sahara saw an alien emerging from General Rack's body. Sahara needed to find out more, so she took the small alien and looked into the future. She discovered that these aliens had a leader who had taken over Captain Jack's body. Now, Captain Jack intended to control all humans and travel to Earth. It seemed that when Captain Jack and his team had gone to battle, the creatures had taken over their bodies. After uncovering the entire truth, Dex and Sahara set out with weapons to stop Captain Jack completely. Jack was now with all the soldiers, who were still under the aliens' control. As soon as they saw Dex and Sahara, they opened fire on them. Sahara and Dex didn't stop. They fought back and managed to kill many alien soldiers. When Jack sensed danger, he quickly retreated to the top. He removed the electricity and disabled the parameter, which Dex had created to block the aliens. Without this parameter, the large creatures began to invade the outpost, quickly surrounding it and making escape impossible. Therefore, Dex took Sahara to the rooftop where they were safe. The best news was that a rescue spaceship from Earth had arrived to evacuate everyone. Sahara warned the soldiers on the spaceship not to let Jack on board because he had become an alien and would increase his population if he reached Earth. Jack was attacking Sahara fiercely and trying to enter the spaceship. However, Dex, now furious, grabbed Captain Jack, who was an alien, and threw him off the rooftop. Jack died from the fall. Dex knew that the place was no longer safe, so he quickly got Sahara onto the spaceship and told her to leave. But Dex said that since everyone on Earth considered him a criminal, he would not be able to live well there, so it was better for him to stay. The spaceship, with the rescue soldiers and Sahara, flew away from the outpost. Dex stayed behind, fighting the incoming creatures alone. Sahara, seeing this, began to cry out for Dex and mourned his situation. Years after the incident, the situation has changed. The most positive development is that all military forces now consider Dex a hero. They learned that Dex sacrificed his own life to save his comrades, and many soldiers, inspired by him, joined the military. Sahara had a child, who was Dex's, as they had been in a relationship together. This story concludes in the very outpost where everything unfolded.